incident at the World Cup, of course, this week. What are you talking about on social media? What are you passionate about? At SABC Newsroom. That's where we love to interact with you. We love your pictures, comments and opinions. The latest today, what are you talking about? Let's have a look. Spelele says, whoever didn't see the Power Park building in Soweto as a hazard needs to be examined. You could tell from Josie that building was collapsing. Then Noma says, what did these people want in an abandoned building? Maybe they wanted a place to stay. Nick Martin Shabangu says, after they've been rescued and assessed for injuries, will they be arrested for cable theft? Hashtag Power Park, he says. It's much more serious there. Some people have lost their lives, unfortunately. There you have a picture. That was from the building collapse, Mar Joburg's picture, that is. There you have the rescue efforts continuing as they continually try to, rescue people from that collapsed building. Of course, that sniffer dogs will be sent in there a little bit later this morning to have a look if there are anyone else trapped underneath the rubble. That's a developing story right here on SABC News. We'll keep you updated as to how it breaks throughout the day. This week in history, 21 years ago, troops of the right-wing Afrikaner Weerstandsbeweging, the AWB, led by Eugene Terreblanche, stormed the World Trade Center near Kempton Park, where the Congress for a Democratic South Africa, CODESA, was in session. The action was in protest against negotiations for a future democracy here in South Africa. The invaders broke through the glass front of the building with an armoured car, then took over the main conference hall, threatening delegates and painting slogans on the wall, but they left again soon afterwards.
It marked the beginning of a campaign of enormous violence and carnage.
That was the 26th of June 1993. It feels like a lifetime away for some of us. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. We'll be back after a short commercial break.
Who are we, you ask? This is who we are.
We are technologically driven.
We are unashamedly Afrocentric.
We advise you not only on legal matters,
but on health issues as well.
We bring imagination to life.
We celebrate arts and culture and lifestyle.
We tackle life challenges head on.
We dig deep. We probe. We question.
We invite you to take a view from our house, as we tell it without fear, separating fiction from factual.
We are the SABC News Channel.
All news, all global, all the time.
The story of Joyce has captured the heart of many and instilled hope to those who had succumbed to the pain of living with cancer.
I am going through breast cancer, and of which is stage 4. And the doctor said I left only with 25% to live.
Batho ba ba tshwereng ke cancer ba se ke ba lapa ba tshwanetse ba tswelele pele.
My employer called me and told me that I mustn't come back anymore because of they found someone who's going to replace me.
Welcome back. You're still watching Newsroom here on SABC News. As the world celebrated Refugee Day last week, security guards employed by the Department of Home Affairs reportedly shambocked and pepper-sprayed asylum seekers in Marabastad in Pretoria. Lawyers for Human Rights members who visited the Marabastad reception office last week witnessed the attack. The incident is said to be the subject of a high-level investigation. From the Lawyers of Human Rights in Pretoria, we're joined by Patricia Erasmus, the head of the refugee clinic in Pretoria, to give us more clarity on what exactly happened, as well as a broader issue concerning refugees in this country. Very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Let's start with last week's incident. Just recap for us exactly what happened and who was involved.
On the 19th of June, which was the day before World Refugee Day, some observers from Lawyers for Human Rights attended Marabastad Refugee Reception Office, which is where asylum seekers and refugees go to become documented. And they were most disturbed to witness members of a security company which is employed by Department of Home Affairs to manage the crowds outside of the refugee reception office, most disturbed to observe them using shambucks on the asylum seekers and the refugees, somewhat indiscriminately. So they observed members of the security company whipping members of the crowd who were trying to gain access to the refugee reception office. They also witnessed them utilizing pepper spray to spray the refugees and asylum seekers in the face. Also, refugees and asylum seekers were hit with the hands of the security officials. So I think the pictures which are coming up on your screen now observe what happened on that day. And it's particularly concerning that this would happen on the eve of World Refugee Day, which is supposed to be a day to celebrate the treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. But, I mean, the pictures speak 1,000 words that show perhaps there's not so much to celebrate with the widespread human rights abuses which are taking place at the Marabastad Refugee Reception Office.
There is an accusation that the Department of Home Affairs is stopping refugees from going to refugee reception offices in Johannesburg, Cape Town and Port Elizabeth. Is that accurate, and what does it mean, and what impact will that have if it is?
Yes, it is accurate. What has happened is the refugee reception offices in Johannesburg and Port Elizabeth and Cape Town have been closed for newcomers, which means that nobody can apply as a first-time asylum seeker in those refugee reception offices anymore, which has disastrous consequences for the refugee reception offices around the rest of the country and for refugees who would choose to settle in those areas where there is no refugee reception office. It means now that everybody has to come to a very limited number of refugee reception offices, and basically limited to Durban, Musina and Pretoria, which is a very small number of refugee reception offices servicing a large number of asylum seekers who would like to apply for refugee status. And it really has contributed to putting the refugee process into crisis, into complete crisis, because it's completely overwhelmed.
Is it very difficult to be a refugee and asylum seeker now in the South Africa of today? And then tell us about what responsibility should the country have towards refugees?
It is very difficult to be an asylum seeker or refugee in South Africa, even though South Africa has got what we would refer to as a model refugee system, especially legislatively speaking and policy speaking. We see a big discrepancy in the practice, and we see a big discrepancy in the realization of the refugee and asylum seekers' rights. So refugees, because we have an urban settlement model, should be free to live in the community. They are not confined to refugee camps. They should be able to access work and be able to study. Their children should be able to attend schools in South Africa. They should be able to attend basic healthcare services as well. But unfortunately, what we see is while we have an ideal system, or an ideal system in theory, we see the rights of refugees and asylum seekers not being protected due to factors like wide-scale corruption at Home Affairs. Refugees and asylum seekers are entitled to documentation. They're entitled to regularize their stay until such time as they have been finally rejected. And we find that they are unable to access their documentation to which they're entitled, because without paying a bribe, they are denied the most basic of rights. The closure as well, which we mentioned, of the various refugee reception offices has a huge impact. And I think as well the blatant human rights abuses taking place outside specifically the Marabastad Refugee Reception Office is of huge concern to us. We also see excessive backlogs in the asylum process. So those that want to appeal their rejection rejection from Home Affairs should go to the appeal board, the Refugee Appeal Board. The delays and backlogs in that forum are excessive. Similarly, the Standing Committee for Refugee Affairs, the delays and backlogs there are equally excessive. So I think it can be celebrated that we have the potential to have a very good refugee system. We unfortunately just do not see the implementation at this point.
Thank you very much for joining us. That's Patricia Erasmus, who's the head of the Refugee Clinic in Pretoria, giving us a little bit more clarity as to the difficulties that's being faced by refugees in South Africa. Now, to delve a little bit deeper into this story, this week it emerged that the Minister of Home Affairs, that's the new Minister of Home Affairs, Malisi Gigaba, could face prison time after he was found to be in contempt of court by the High Court in Pretoria. The court found Gigaba was in contempt of an August court order directing him to decide within 30 days whether Frederick Ngubane, who is not recognized as a citizen of any country, could live in South Africa as a permanent resident. The ruling came after lawyers for human rights acting for Ngubane went to court after the Department of Home Affairs failed for almost 2 years to decide on Ngubane's application. Well, we are joined by Ngubane's lawyer, Liesl Miller, this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
We just heard from Patricia the broader situation, and here we have this case, meaning the problem with foreigners in the country really is a lot bigger than what we are led to believe, one would think.
Yes, I do believe that even globally we're facing a very large problem. I think at the moment it's about 51 million people who are displaced worldwide because of war and persecution. So in South Africa, we do receive a lot of African refugees, amongst others. So we deal with those high numbers, and we also deal with what we in our project deal with, which is statelessness, which, like you said, is a person who does not have citizenship in any country in the world.
Yeah. Just shed a little bit of light, a little bit more light or a bit more detail on this specific Ngubane case that you're dealing with.
Yes, Mr. Ngubane was born in South Africa to South African parents, which would mean that technically he is a South African. In his case, there is no way for him to prove this fact, which would mean he cannot pass the, he cannot comply with the requirements for birth registration, which is the way through which South Africa acknowledges citizenship. So Mr. Ngubane also has lived abroad with his parents. They died when he was a very young age, so left him undocumented and without proof of his parents' identity. He also has a bit of an accent from living in a different country, so he's very open to arrest and detainment for immigration purposes, even though he cannot be deported to any country in the world.
Because he doesn't have papers. But this case itself, it's taken such a long time. I think it's more than 2 years that it's been toing and froing. Why is that?
The biggest problem is that we have no mechanism in our law to deal with stateless people. There is one application that we can use, which is this application for permanent residence in special circumstances. So we were advised by the department to apply because of the fact that he cannot prove his citizenship. So for 2 years we've been trying to get feedback. We've done significant research on his background. I think Home Affairs just needed to confirm this, but for 2 years we never got feedback, and eventually I had to go to court and get 3 court orders. The last one, which was in the media this week, threatening the minister with prison time before I got a response. So,
and you got a response from the minister, and what's the latest there now? Is it moving forward? Were the discussions with the minister?
Well, it's ironic because we got a decision within 24 hours since it was in the media, and the decision is a rejection. So at this point, we have no other options. I have no idea what Home Affairs plans to do with this client of mine, but what we can do at this stage is we can review the decision, which is a good thing. Before we had a decision, even if it's a rejection, there's nothing that we can do.
So rejection, that's the only reaction you've had, nothing else?
Yes, so even with our substantial application that we lodged, we only got one paragraph saying that, sorry, we can't give him permanent residence, there's no proof of his citizenship, which is the same reason they gave us when they advised us to apply. So it's a very difficult situation.
So I know it's very difficult, but where does it leave Mr. Ngubane? He's sort of a man without a home at the moment.
Yes, it's very difficult for stateless people because you're basically illegal in every country that you find yourself. And it's impossible for you to work, study, rent a home. You are entirely dependent on random acts of kindness. And if you're considered a foreigner, which most of them are, then we also have xenophobia to deal with. So it's very difficult. There are international conventions which deal with these things, but in South Africa we haven't signed them, and we do not have any mechanism in our domestic law.
One would think, with our background and the fact that we ourselves have been refugees all over the African continent for so long, that this process would be streamlined and it would be much better.
Yes, definitely. I think there is a lack of understanding the situation. Most people don't believe that it's possible to be stateless, but it is definitely possible, and it is not the fault of the person who is stateless. So I'm also shocked that with our history we don't have a mechanism to deal with this.
And just quickly before we go, what's ahead for Mr. Ngubane now the next month or so?
Well, firstly, we need to, as soon as possible, provide him with some kind of interim protection, which we'll ask the court for, and then we'll start a judicial review process to review this decision of the minister and ask for relief, and maybe even for relief for other stateless people.
Well, that's very interesting. One would think that a framework should be or would be put in place. But thank you very much for joining us and giving us a little bit of insight into what's a unique case, really.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, let's take another quick look at what you're talking about on social media. Of course, the world never stops these days. Everyone's twittering away or putting pictures up on Facebook. What have you been doing? Let's have a look. ASRC says, today is UN International Day in support of victims of torture. Fitting to ask, why does avid government... Okay, you're too fast for me, guys. Jessica Pereira says, a stranger to my eyes, singing my life with his words. We want equality for refugees, says Golf Alpha Yankee. Support people all over the world, even in Iran, he says. Each time you blink, another person is forced to flee. These are the realities that we face on this planet every single day. Just because it's going very well where you live, it doesn't mean that there aren't people who are battling this type of scourge every day. Let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. Of course, you can see all the latest news right there today. You can read more on the story of 21 people who were killed after another explosion tore through a shopping district in the Nigerian capital, Abuja, yesterday. Also there, the head of the UN mission to Iraq believes UN military assistance recently sent to the country is welcomed by Iraqis. And then there's also more on the rand firming against the dollar. That's the good news, partly because of the return to work by platinum miners after their 5-month strike. You are watching Newsroom on SABC News. We'll be back after a short break.
The Swaziland Tourism Authority invited Kaleidoscope on a media tour of what has become known as the Little Switzerland of Africa, the Kingdom of Swaziland. The Mantanga Waterfall is one of Swaziland's best known and most accessible waterfalls, as it can be seen within 50 meters.
That's Kaleidoscope, Sundays 5:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Let's have a look at the news-making headlines this morning. There are fears that the death toll from an abandoned building collapse in Soweto could rise. Early this morning, emergency services had to amputate the hand of a man trapped under the rubble so they could free him. One person was confirmed dead last night, while 5 others were rescued from the building at the power park in Orlando. The victims were allegedly stealing metal from the building when it collapsed. 3 men are expected to appear in court today or tomorrow in connection with what's believed to be the biggest drugs bust in South African history. 2 of the men are Chinese nationals. Heroin with an estimated street value of 3 billion rand was seized from a drug lab in Kloof outside Durban. Moving to the news from the continent, 21 people were killed and 17 injured when an explosion tore through a crowded shopping district in the Nigerian capital Abuja yesterday. No one has claimed responsibility, but the militant Islamist group Boko Haram has increasingly targeted civilians in its bloody 5-year insurgency. Uruguay and Liverpool forward Luis Suarez could be kicked out of the World Cup in Brazil today when FIFA announces the findings of its investigation into charges against the striker. He is accused of biting Italian defender Giorgio Chiellini on the left shoulder during Tuesday's World Cup game in Natal. The Uruguayan already has 2 previous biting offences on his record. Argentina beat Nigeria 3-2 in their World Cup match. Both teams will advance to the second round after Iran lost to Bosnia in another Group F game. Switzerland beat Honduras 3-0, securing the runners-up spot in World Cup Group E, and a last 16 clash against Argentina. France drew 0-0 with Ecuador to top the group and will play Nigeria in the last 16. Now, Nedbank's Make a Warmer Winter campaign is in full swing. Joining forces with the Living Artists Emporium, artists are hard at work painting 10 artworks that centre around the theme of Make a Warmer Winter happen. The 10 paintings will be auctioned off next month, and the funds raised will be used to buy more blankets for those who need it most. Today, we are joined by Rulani Lohong from Nedbank's Social Responsibility team, as well as Ayanda Nkosi from the Living Artists Emporium. Guys, welcome to Newsroom.
Thank you.
Rulani, I want to start off with you. We've spoken about this campaign before. Can you just recap it briefly to us where it all started?
The Nedbank Winter Campaign was launched in 2010, and we aim in assisting vulnerable senior citizens as well as children from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's in its 5th year this year. Nedbank has invested 3.2 million towards the campaign, inclusive of this year's budget. Total investment for this year is 500,000, where we are hoping to support about 3,000 beneficiaries from the campaign.
Now, what is the latest update? I understand you guys already started distributing the blankets across the country.
It has been a fantastic journey since we launched the campaign on the 3rd of June. We've been through all the provinces. The last leg of the campaign, which is the closing event, we will then have it on the 3rd of July, where we'll be handing over blankets at the Grahamstown Arts Festival.
Ayanda, you were part of Joburg Inner City project, if I'm correct. Can you tell us as well about that project and how you got involved with the Living Artists Emporium?
I was part of the Youth Inner City. While I was there were some lack of funds, so we had to vacate the building. So I approached Living Artists Emporium. While I was there, I met Conrad, who mentored me and guided me in my art. That's how I became part of the Living Arts Emporium.
Now, Ayanda, you're described as one of the minimalist South African artists in this country. You're also the only woman in this campaign painting one of the 10 artworks. Can you tell us more about your involvement in this campaign and how you decided to become involved, and then just your style and inspiration?
My style is different because I've managed to marry suprematism and super blur, meaning that I use a lot of geometric shapes and primary colors within my work as a background to painting pictures which are less distinct, and my influence is Basquiat.
Now, how will you be incorporating this in the artwork that you're busy with right now?
I'll be painting around the theme, Making a Warmer Winter Happen. I'll be focusing on women and children because I believe they are the most affected and vulnerable members of our society. So I will be incorporating also my signature style within my painting.
Now, without telling us too much, how has it been, the artists in this campaign? I know the paintings, we're going to see it next week. How's the journey been so far?
The journey is very exciting. We are all excited as artists to be partnering with Nedbank, and we are almost finished with our artworks. So it's going great back at the studio.
Now, Rulani, the artworks, we will see them next week. What's the goal of this campaign this year, and are you steadily reaching it?
For us, the campaign on the 3rd of July will be more of recapping what we have done and what has worked well within the campaign this year. And inclusive of that, we will be auctioning the paintings that we're getting from the Living Artists Emporium. And our aim is to raise more funds so we can procure more blankets.
Now, Ayanda, as a young artist, what is your message to the other young artists out there?
My message will be to live, eat, breathe your art, and to commit and to your passion. And in due time, things will start happening for you.
Rulani, quite special to work with artists like this. Can you just tell us, people out there who want to get involved in this campaign, how can they get involved?
Yes, please. Get involved in making this year's winter warmer by donating 20 rands and by SMSing winter, the word winter, to our SMS line 40017. That you'll be contributing 20 rands towards the SMS.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And that's Rulani from Nedbank, as well as Ayanda from the Living Artists Emporium, talking about Nedbank's latest Winter Warmer campaign, Make a Warmer Winter Happen. We will be seeing the 10 artworks that 10 artists have been working on next week when they are auctioned off in Grahamstown. Eben, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Catrine. For some people, winter is a beautiful thing, and they get to build snowmen and play outside. For others, it's a simple scourge that really endangers their lives. Let's try and make this winter warmer. Send the message. It's going to cost you $20. We're going to close today's show by taking a look at what's been happening in the online news and social media front. And as always, joining me, SABC Digital News Production Editor, Bongi Mokhale. Good morning, Bongi. Thanks for joining us again.
Morning, Eben.
You've been away a little bit. You've been sending the minions.
Been behind the scenes. Everyone must have their chance in the spotlight.
Tell us about the platinum strike being over now, and it must have been quite massive traction. How have you guys been keeping users and viewers up to date?
Well, obviously the news broke on Monday that now finally they were going to be signing. The signing actually happened on Tuesday. So what we had on the site was the video from our news reports on TV News. And obviously, people had a lot to say about the end of the strike. A sigh of relief that finally there's been some resolution. You see it on your screen now, this actual story that we did. And as you go down, you'll see that you can access the video on this. You can access people bringing in their comments.
That's Sela Tatai, right?
Yeah, that's Sela Tatai.
Yeah, Sela's been doing a fantastic job on it.
Excellent work on this story. And there we've got some of the figures of what the settlement is going to be, and people welcoming the news. Of course, now our breath is a bit bated because we're waiting to see about the retrenchments that Lonmin has said will have to be affected. Who knows when the industry will actually be able to recover. What we've also done on the platinum strike is we've done what we call an infographic, and like the timeline that takes us through when it all started. We'll remember that it did all have its source with the miners who were shot in 2012. That just kicked it all off. So we've got a graphic that people can go into the website and have a look at this, and they can see how it developed right up until the resolution that's been reached and all the workers are back.
And it all sort of coincides with the Marikana Commission got underway this week. Big news there, Mr. X spilling the beans. We've been doing some live streaming on it, yeah?
Yes, we have been doing some live streaming on Mr. X. You can go onto our YouTube channel. You can go have a look at this. What you are seeing on our screen right now is some of the sessions from earlier on in the week. He testified, I think, on Monday and Tuesday. Took a break because I think it's been very straining, this testimony. You will remember that he's actually been saying that he felt like he was being bewitched. at some stage.
Yes.
So he's taking a bit of strain, and I think Dalimpofu referring him for wanting him to be referred for mental observation. So it's just a lot coming through, a lot of very, very gruesome testimony. But I think that for the families who are hearing finally from Mr. X, it's been a bit of closure now for what's happened to their relatives. So he's back, expected back at the commission tomorrow. So people can go and have a look on our YouTube channel and be able to follow the proceedings.
And the live stream will continue then?
It will continue, yes.
Oh, that's very, very interesting for those interested, especially family members who can't attend. It's really something nice to be able to watch it live online. Of course, end of the week, beginning next week, Oscar Pistorius is back in court. The world will be watching again. How are we going to go about it?
Oh, we're there in court as usual. We're going to be tweeting from there. Obviously, we'll be getting updates via stories from all of the reporters who are covering the story. And we're also going to be live streaming this. We took a long break from Oscar while he was also undergoing his own mental evaluation. So people can go and have a look at the special report that we've got on the website. You can go and catch up on all of the news, take you back if you need a bit of a refresher on what was going on with him and all of the highlights from his trial. And then also what we're going to be doing is obviously the live streaming. What we have on our YouTube channel is the playlist of everything, all of the videos we've got, the interviews, the news reports, what people have been having to say about this trial as it's been going along. You know, if you feel like this weekend you need a bit of a break from the soccer, or you need to just go refresh.
I need a bit of a break from the soccer, to
It's all available on our YouTube channel and our website.
And then we were, well, this week we ran the tribute, was live streamed to Eddie Zondi.
Yes.
That must have gone down very well also with users, because I don't think a lot of people could attend the event itself.
Yeah, you know, it was very, very sad news to lose one of our colleagues, and perhaps somebody who's been in the industry for such a long time. And it was so sudden, such a sudden and tragic loss. So we do have the tribute that was done on SABC2. There's like lots of videos also that covered his funeral service, the memorials, you know, just so people who perhaps were a part of his life through his music and through his radio program can go and have a look and be able to say goodbye if they still want to go have a look.
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Love Jam. Now, I wanted to talk about the big story this week on social media, probably the biggest story so far this year on social media. It's Luis Suarez biting Mr. Chiellini. He obviously likes a bit of Italian, doesn't he?
Yes, no, he likes to bite and things, and then sometimes part-time he plays a bit of soccer. Twitter has gone wild with this. Okay, it's not the first time that this has happened. He's been banned before. We're waiting to hear today whether his World Cup campaign is over. You can see on your screens now all of the shots from the biting incident. It's sort of like, can you please just play some soccer and stop with the biting already?
Yeah, we saw the picture. It wasn't the worst bite that I've ever seen, to be honest. But then again, in true football fashion, you have to overplay it and fall to the ground like I need 50 stitches in my arm, that sort of thing. And thought it was overplayed, but he did bite the guy.
He did bite the guy. We can understand perhaps kicking going on, but I have yet to understand what teeth are doing in a soccer match.
Yeah, that's right.
So what's happened here also is that Twitter, the pictures, it's brought out the sense of humor in people. You know, they're irreverent. Behind social media, you can hide anything.
There's been a lot of spoof photos.
A lot of spoof photos.
A lot of muzzling him, Hannibal Lecter, or all sorts of other pictures.
Hilarious. It's been absolutely hilarious. And you can go and have a look at the story we've done on the website. We've included that story file with all of those pictures, so you can go have a good laugh.
And then all of the other World Cup stuff, all the other World Cup news.
All available on our special report and on our World Cup website. So you're missing out on nothing.
Well, thank you very much, Bungi, for joining us and giving us another heads up as to what's happening in the digital world. Of course, SABC Digital News, one of the best digital platforms on the planet. Let's now take a look at what you are talking about finally on social media, what you're saying at SABC Newsroom. That's where we are. Of course, it's World Cup. My bet, Suarez is kicked out of the World Cup. No more, no less, I would think. Brian Bermudez says, I would like to see Suarez kicked out of the World Cup for good. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he might get a year. Kurt says, every club in Europe would take him. The same people who want him kicked out of the game would love to have him at their club. I don't think the Liverpool supporters are that happy today, to be honest, my friend. And Reed says, my 4-year-old's former daycare kicked a kid out for excessive biting. A grown man should get the same, if not a bigger punishment. And then Gichuki Solomon says, Suarez forgot he was not recording Vampire Diaries. And there you have some of the spoofs. Spoof pictures, Suarez Park, Jurassic Park spoof there. Of course, he is known for the man with the big overbite, the big top jaw, the big teeth. really brought it home there. Luis Suarez, not the smartest thing I've ever seen, but anyhow, I suppose Liverpool fans will still be in his corner. Bless you. Newsroom is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. from our studios here in Johannesburg, South Africa. The show repeats at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast then at 5 a.m. the next morning. We also stream live on YouTube every day with the whole show then available on our YouTube channel all of the time. This is SABC News. You have been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.